Her chilling prediction reads, "This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous."
For decades, whispers surrounded Diana's marriage to King Charles, but nothing could have prepared the world for what has just surfaced: Diana's secret diary. These intimate pages reveal her raw confessions of betrayal, loneliness, and even her darkest moments marked by self-destructive thoughts and actions. What hidden stories do they tell about Charles's role in her heartache? Join us as we uncover the diary's revelations that could alter the legacy of Britain's most enigmatic royal. Diana's diary, a cry for help. For years, Princess Diana was the epitome of a devoted wife and beloved member of the royal family. She moved with a blend of elegance and grace, embodying the fairy tale image the world expected. Whether attending royal engagements or connecting with people, she radiated warmth and poise. Yet beneath this picture-perfect exterior, Diana was fighting battles that few could imagine. A recent discovery has shed light on the hidden chapters of her life, a long-lost diary that unveils her most vulnerable moments. These pages pull back the curtain of her public persona, revealing the deep, personal battles she faced behind closed doors. In her own handwriting, we see the relentless struggle with eating disorders, the silent suffering of multiple self-destructive attempts, and the heartache that came from a marriage unraveling at its core. Diana was known for her touching and heartfelt letters, but her diary was where she truly laid herself bare. As the glow of her fairy tale romance dimmed into the shadow of a troubled union, her diary became her sanctuary, a place to release her pain and confide her deepest fears. This diary shows a woman trapped within the dazzling confines of royalty, facing battles she could hardly share. Through these pages, we see Diana not just as a royal figure, but as a woman yearning for freedom, understanding, and peace. Diana's struggle with Charles's betrayal. In the quiet of her room, Princess Diana poured her heart into a leather-bound diary, page after page echoing her unspoken thoughts and private heartbreak. These diaries, meant only for her own eyes, hold the story of a young princess whose fairy tale marriage to Prince Charles was shadowed by betrayal and loneliness. At first, she had every reason to hope. Diana's warmth, grace, and beauty soon won over people around the world. Known as the People's Princess, she connected with the public like no other royal, bringing a modern kindness to the monarchy. Yet even as her popularity grew, she felt an invisible wall growing between herself and her husband. Charles, once a source of comfort and companionship, seemed to turn cold, the warmth between them dimmed by jealousy. In her diary, she confided her confusion and pain, describing how Charles's resentment would slip out in small but piercing ways. Offhand comments, dismissive remarks about her efforts, tiny jabs that slowly eroded her self-worth. It hurt to realize that Charles saw her popularity not as a shared triumph, but as a threat. Diana felt he was unwilling to celebrate her success, and instead of seeing her as an ally, he seemed to view her as a rival. Her diary entries often returned to this rift, wondering why Charles could not take pride in her accomplishments and how much more powerful they might have been together. Yet nothing cut as deeply as his ongoing relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana felt trapped in a marriage where her husband's affections clearly lay elsewhere. When she confronted Charles, the exchanges only reinforced her loneliness. In one raw entry, she recounted an unforgettable conversation in which she asked Charles about his affair with Camilla, hoping for a glimmer of reassurance. But his response was hollow and indifferent. "Well, I refuse to be only Prince of Wales who never had a mistress." For Diana, it felt like a door slamming shut, a brutal confirmation that she would always be an outsider to the bond he shared with Camilla. The burden of Charles's infidelity weighed heavily on Diana. Every day, she wrestled with feelings of inadequacy, questioning why she could never be enough to win his love completely. Her diary entries reflect how hard it was for her to keep up the appearance of happiness while her world fell apart. She felt trapped in a life where everyone expected her to smile and wave, even as she struggled internally, feeling broken by the knowledge that her husband's heart belonged to someone else. Diana's breaking point: go to hell. The phrase "go to hell" wasn't just a harsh outburst. It was the boiling point of Diana's years-long heartache and anger toward Charles. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment reaction, but the climax of a slow, painful buildup of betrayal and disappointment. To fully grasp the weight of this moment, we need to look back at the history of turmoil that led Diana to this breaking point. A journey that reveals the struggles within a marriage that was once celebrated as a fairy tale. When Diana married Prince Charles, the world cheered, enchanted by the idea of a real-life princess. But behind the regal facade lay cracks that only deepened with time. What the public didn't see was that Diana's marriage to Charles was marred by a lack of affection and trust. Charles's long-standing affair with Camilla Parker Bowles became a relentless wound for Diana. She felt undervalued, like she was a mere accessory to a man who had already given his heart to another. Her diary entries capture this inner struggle, her pain over Charles's emotional distance, and her sense of betrayal as she watched him prioritize his connection with Camilla over his vows to her. The infamous "go to hell" was not born from one heated fight. It was the result of a decade of loneliness and disappointment. Diana had sensed, almost from the beginning, that Charles's relationship with Camilla wasn't simply a relic of the past, but in the royal world, maintaining appearances was everything, leaving Diana feeling trapped in a gilded cage. She was expected to put on a brave face, fulfilling her duties in public while privately facing the desolation of a marriage that offered her no emotional refuge. Her diaries reflect this isolation. A young woman, abandoned by the man she thought would cherish her, left alone to bear the weight of her title. One argument in particular marked a painful turning point. Desperate for honesty, Diana confronted Charles about his relationship with Camilla. Instead of offering her the validation or reassurance she longed for, Charles coldly dismissed her feelings, accusing her of being overly sensitive and irrational. For Diana, this wasn't just another slight. It was the confirmation of her deepest fears. She felt rejected, unheard, and perhaps most painfully, disregarded by the man whose love she had once believed in. In her diaries, Diana recounted the hurt of that day, and others like it, when she tried again and again to reach Charles, to break through the wall of emotional distance he kept firmly in place. She expressed her anger and frustration, her longing for a husband who could look beyond her royal role and see her as an individual, as a partner. But instead, she felt trapped in a life where her voice was muted and her identity as a woman was swallowed by the demands of royalty. One particularly heartbreaking entry captures the neglect and dismissal she endured. She recounted a moment when Charles publicly made fun of her, reducing her pain to a mere joke. In that moment, Diana felt as though she had vanished, reduced to someone whose feelings were insignificant and unworthy of respect. It was incidents like this that fueled her growing resentment and anger, emotions that ultimately erupted onto the page in her private words, "Go to hell." Diana's diaries became her quiet rebellion, a way to take back some control in a life that seemed intent on silencing her. Through writing, she rediscovered parts of herself that had been overshadowed by her role in the royal family. She expressed that she was more than just a wife. She was an individual who deserved recognition and respect beyond her title. Diana's battle for Charles's love. Diana's diaries reveal a story of love, betrayal, and resilience. Beneath her public smile, she carried a deep pain rooted in her husband's long-standing connection with Camilla Parker Bowles. From the very start, even on her wedding day, Diana felt Camilla's shadow over her marriage, as if she were competing for Charles's affection. It was a role she never expected to play, the other woman in her own marriage. This reality weighed on her, turning the fairy tale image into a private anguish few could imagine. The diary entries unfold like pages of a heartbreaking novel, showing Diana's raw confrontations with Charles. She would question him, pressing to understand his attachment to Camilla, desperate for reassurance that never seemed to come. Charles's silence in these moments left Diana adrift, feeling unseen and abandoned. It was as though she stood outside her own marriage, looking in at a life that could have been hers but instead belonged to someone else. The toll on her self-worth was immense. In her most vulnerable reflections, Diana wrestled with feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, seeing herself as somehow lacking in comparison to Camilla. She looked at her reflection, often struggling to recognize the person staring back. In her mind, she had lost a part of herself to the constant need to measure up, to be enough for a husband whose heart, she felt, was never truly hers. As the affair became less of a secret, Diana's humiliation grew. She recounted the ache of attending public events where Camilla was also present, feeling as though she alone was blind to the truth everyone else seemed to know. The need to maintain a polished public image became a heavy burden, forcing her to hide her heartbreak beneath a veneer of composure. Yet, amid this storm, Diana's diaries reveal her extraordinary resilience. Though wounded and often isolated, she held on to her sense of purpose. She focused on her children, her royal responsibilities, and the idea of being a role model, channeling her pain into a fierce determination. Her writings reflect a woman who, even in the face of betrayal, clung to her dignity and self-worth, reminding herself of her worth beyond her husband's love. Diana's diaries show a woman of strength, determined to keep going even when every day felt like a battle. She accepted her imperfections, acknowledging the impossibility of perfection under constant scrutiny, yet staying true to herself. Diana's battle with inner demons. Behind the public image of grace and elegance, Princess Diana was a woman locked in a personal battle with mental health challenges that shadowed her life in the royal family. Her diary reveals a deeply intimate portrait of this struggle, her ongoing fight with bulimia, episodes of intense loneliness and moments of despair that began soon after her marriage to Prince Charles. Although surrounded by the constant pomp and formality of royal duties, Diana felt achingly isolated, often like an outsider within her own life, confined by expectations that left her feeling unseen and unheard. Her words paint a haunting picture of the private pain she endured. Diana often described the toll that her role took on her, a role that demanded perfection from her, even as her world grew darker. The demands of public life were relentless. She felt the crushing weight of maintaining a poised, flawless image while battling a torrent of inner pain. This struggle came to a head in moments when she found herself teetering on the edge of despair, her diary reflecting the heartbreaking reality of a woman who sometimes felt she had nowhere to turn. One particularly harrowing memory recounts her throwing herself down the staircase in Kensington Palace while being pregnant with Prince William. Exhausted and wounded by Prince Charles's dismissive comment that she was merely a crying wolf, she felt trapped beneath a facade that left her feeling drained and empty. At one point, she even attempted to self-harm in an effort to express the depth of her despair. In the face of this anguish, Diana sought comfort wherever she could find a sense of control, often turning to bulimia as a coping mechanism. Within the controlled rituals of her eating disorder, she found something she could command amid the chaos of her life. This struggle was fueled by hurtful comments, especially Charles's unkind remarks about her appearance, which only deepened her insecurities. She began to see her body as both a battleground and a source of punishment, hoping that by shrinking herself, she might somehow alleviate her inner suffering. The loneliness of her journey is woven throughout her reflections. Despite being surrounded by the glittering world of the monarchy, Diana felt an intense solitude, yearning for someone to truly listen, to acknowledge the weight of her pain. However, her cries for help often went unanswered. Her pleas for understanding echoed within the royal walls, leaving her to navigate the darkest stretches of her journey alone. Yet, even in her darkest hours, Diana clung to a fierce resilience that would later define her legacy. She wrestled with despair, but there remained a spark of determination, a strength that kept her pressing forward even when she felt close to breaking. She refused to be defeated by the forces surrounding her, determined to survive not only for herself, but for the causes and people who looked to her for hope. Diana's heartache through her son's eyes. William and Harry grew up within the walls of a royal family that carefully shielded them from the deeper, darker strains of their parents' relationship. They were young after all, and even the upheaval surrounding their mother's life seems somewhat softened by the innocence of childhood. But in adulthood, they have come face to face with the truth of Diana's struggles, and it is her own words, captured within the pages of her diary, that have opened their eyes to the depth of her heartbreak. Through these pages, William and Harry have glimpsed the pain that defined much of Diana's life as a royal. Her diary speaks of Charles's infidelity and the emotional distance that, despite her efforts, she couldn't seem to bridge. These were secrets she bore alone, and yet with every word, she invites her sons into an understanding of her life that they hadn't known, or perhaps hadn't fully understood while she was alive. As children, they sensed the tension that rippled through their family home. But it's now with adult eyes that they begin to grasp the weight of their mother's sorrow. Diana's diary has given them a raw, unfiltered look into the anguish that marked her life, and such revelations have inevitably colored their perspectives on their father and the roles they, themselves, play in the royal family. Prince William, as the future king, has largely chosen a path of diplomacy, balancing his reverence for his mother's memory with respect for the monarchy. It is a tightrope walk, and his approach to Charles reflects the challenge of both acknowledging Diana's suffering and moving forward with a sense of duty. These diary entries, however, likely stir something profound within him, an awareness that his role is not just to inherit a crown, but to also uphold the compassion and humanity his mother embodied. These private insights into Diana's life have perhaps fueled his resolve to carry forward her legacy of kindness, even amidst the demands of his position. For Prince Harry, Diana's diary seems to echo with a deeper resonance. He has often been more candid in his reflections on the royal family, speaking openly about his mother's struggle against media scrutiny and the emotional isolation she endured. It is as if her words are guiding him too, as he carves his own path away from the monarchy. Harry's decision to step back from royal duties to choose family and freedom over formality feels like an answer to the anguish his mother faced, a chance to break free from a history that once held her captive. Together, William and Harry are committed to honoring their mother's memory, but the revelations from her diary have likely intensified that commitment. She was more than just a princess in their eyes. She was a woman of heart, of courage, of empathy. And as her words live on, so does the promise that her sons carry, to preserve her legacy with dignity, to share her story with respect, and to ensure that her impact on the world endures. In these pages, William and Harry find not only a mother, but a mission, a calling to be true to the woman Diana was, and to make sure her spirit lives on in the values they carry forward. Hidden romance in Diana's diary. Princess Diana's secret diary reveals a tender wish she held close to her heart, the desire for the world to witness the love letters exchanged between her and Prince Charles during the early days of their relationship. Within the private pages of her diary, filled with raw emotions and reflections, Diana expressed her longing to share the genuine affection that once flourished between them. As she penned her thoughts, Diana reminisced about a time when love felt vibrant and hopeful. Despite the challenges that ultimately led to the dissolution of their marriage, she cherished the memories of their early romance and believed that those letters could illuminate the depth of their connection. Royal biographer Ingrid Seward confirmed this wish, recounting how Diana confided in her shortly before her tragic death, revealing a longing for understanding beyond the public narrative. In her diary, Diana painted a vivid picture of a love story that was both beautiful and complex, one that she wanted to share with the world. She envisioned her letters serving as a bridge, helping people see the warmth and intimacy they once shared, dispelling the misconceptions that had clouded their relationship over the years. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, comment, and turn on post notifications to stay updated with our latest content.